Thanks for being here. My name is Kate McGuire and I'm the interim superintendent for Anoka-Hennepin Schools. I'm glad that you're here tonight, so thank you. I'd like to just briefly tell you who's in the room and also introduce two of our school board members who are here. Matt Audette is right here and Casey DeShane is right here. And our school board members are here as listeners. All of the feedback from all of our community members are going to our school board members, but they've also been present at our community meetings as well. Additionally, in the room, we have a number of staff members who will be here. Well, we'll introduce them along the way, but the staff members will be here to answer questions at the end of the presentation as well. We have our high school principal here. We have technology team members. I think we might have some transportation team members, associate superintendents who will be here to answer questions at the end. So like every good teacher, I'm going to begin with the end in mind and talk about why we're here this evening. And I'll be presenting, or I'll be sharing some introductory information and then handing it off to others. Dr. Mary Wolverton, our Associate Superintendent for Elementary Schools, and Greg Cole, Chief Operations Officer, to share more details on our proposals. And I'll begin tonight then with why we're here. We need to make some attendance area boundary adjustments at the elementary level throughout the school district and at the middle school level in the Blaine High School cluster. And I want to be clear that we are not proposing any changes at the high school level at this time. In Anoka-Hennepin generally, schools in long-established neighborhoods have fewer students, while schools in rapidly growing areas of the school district have many more. Most of our schools are clustered in these older neighborhoods in the southern 2/3 of the district, and fewer schools are located in the most rapidly growing areas, specifically Blaine and Ramsey. The student population at some of our schools is declining, while the population at some of our schools is exploding. The growth in some of our communities is both exciting and challenging for us because we need to make sure that we're maintaining a quality educational environment and a comparable experience at each of our schools. When schools are overcrowded, it impacts teaching and learning. And just to paint sort of a picture of what that might look like, I'll share that one of our schools is not able to access its complete media center because the media center has been divided for classrooms. One of our elementary schools is so crowded that they don't have a classroom for every teacher, so teachers need to move from room to room and group to group with a rolling cart. Some of our schools may not have enough spaces to meet with small groups of students to provide intervention and academic support, and those interventions and academic support might be being provided in hallways and atriums. Restrooms, lunchrooms, and other common areas may be crowded in some of our schools. Small schools with low enrollment are impacted in other ways. Sometimes they have so few students or too many students, so we aren't close enough to the targeted class size ratios that we prefer. Sometimes entire programs are impacted. For example, some of our kindergarten students at Sunrise Elementary are being served at Johnsville Elementary School this year. So as a result, attendance boundary changes will be needed at the elementary level and at 2 Blaine cluster middle schools to balance enrollment across the district. And tonight we'll share information about the process that we're using to consider these changes, the timeline, parameters that are used to inform our thinking behind these proposals, transportation, transition planning, if we need to make a change, how will we consider the movement of families and children? And we'll also talk a little bit about feedback opportunities. And in order to help you feel informed, once we're done sharing information, you'll have an opportunity to ask questions, and we'll have staff here to assist you and to share information about how you can provide feedback electronically, because we're really trying to collect the most specific feedback all electronically. We appreciate that you're here tonight to get the facts and to share your perspectives. We know through our annual community survey that students and families are very, very attached to their schools and to their teachers in a positive way, which is what makes any proposed boundary change so challenging. So you'll hear tonight more about the work we do to ensure similar educational experiences at all of our schools. And now I'd like to introduce Dr. Mary Wolverton, our Associate Superintendent for Elementary Schools, who will begin sharing additional information.
Thank you, Dr. McGuire, and good evening. Thank you for coming tonight. As you can see on this slide, it references strategic priority 3.3, that through a strategic priority, the school board has provided direction to ensure efficient operations of district facilities and programs. This boundary adjustment is an action step to ensure efficient operations of district facilities and district programs. Beginning the boundary process now facilitates smooth transitions. The new attendance boundaries would go into effect the fall of 2023. This means that the process needs to start now in order for us to gather input and feedback from stakeholders, as well as to set up operations. The school board will be making final decisions on proposals at the meeting in November, and we will be going through that timeline tonight. As Dr. McGuire noted, we are seeking community input and feedback throughout this process. On this slide, you can see a quick glance of the timeline that the school district will be engaged in this fall. As you can see this evening and during the month of September, we have held cluster meetings at each of our high schools. We will provide a recommendation to the school board at the school board meeting on September 26th, specifically in relation to sharing with them common themes and feedback that we have heard from community members during the month of September at our meetings. In the month of October, we will offer a second round of community meetings, again with the goal to continue to gather input and feedback from our stakeholders. On November 7th, at the school board meeting, we will make our initial final recommendation to the school board, with the school board making a final decision at the school board meeting on November 21st. After that final decision on November 21st, then at the district level, we will work with various departments in notifying to families if they are impacted at all by an adjustment in their school of attendance for their children for the fall of 2023. What we will be sharing with you here now are some of the parameters that our team centrally looks at anytime we go through a boundary process. When we looked at the proposals that will be shared tonight, one of the things that we look at is a high priority for the teacher-student ratio that has been approved by the school board throughout our budget process each year and determines our facilities and our adequate space. At the elementary level, a high priority is focused on lower class sizes in kindergarten, first grade, and in the last few years we've also considered second grade and third grade. This also supports us with ensuring educational supports and programming, so that is also a focus in relation to student demographics when we consider the attendance boundaries. At this time, I'd like to introduce Greg Cole, our Chief Operations Officer.
Thank you, Dr. Wolverton. Welcome, those of you who have come to join us here tonight, and also welcome to those of you who are online joining us. Just some other parameters that we use, and before I begin, just to paint a picture, when we use the phrase or the word cluster, that's essentially clusters of our district that are supportive of our 5 high schools or feed our 5 high schools. So we're at Andover tonight, that's one of 5. We have 26 elementary schools. Just to put that in perspective, 3 elementary schools feed Andover High School ultimately, and those would be Andover Elementary, Rum River Elementary, and Crooked Lake Elementary. Okay, so in terms of just doing this district-wide, and it's good for you to have the maps before you, you see the boundaries before you for all 26 elementary schools in the district. But we're just talking about these 3 tonight. So in addition, other parameters we consider, we want to ensure that all students have the opportunity to receive comparable educational experiences regardless of the school they attend in our school district. Same curriculum, same types of other experiences. We want to ensure equitable access across our system. We also have to follow state guidelines and statutes as we go through these processes. And then we place a high value on using our district resources efficiently. Sometimes we get requests to maybe put an addition on a particular building or build a new school somewhere. But we have to look at our existing spaces across our system to ensure that we're effectively using those spaces. Another piece is designing bus rides of reasonable lengths, and that has a direct correlation to boundaries. So if you shift a boundary, you could potentially, put a student in a situation when they're on a bus for a long period of time, longer than any of us would think was a good idea. So those are things that we definitely take into account. We want to facilitate walking to school paths for students living within a mile of their school if there aren't hazards present on the route. So for example, in this community, what would be a hazard? If you can just visualize Andover Elementary School, Hanson Boulevard we consider a hazard. All right, we don't want students crossing Hanson. So even though they might live within a mile, those students would be bused. We want to try to achieve contiguous boundaries as much as possible to minimize disruptions and ensure efficiencies. If you'll notice in a different cluster, the Coon Rapids cluster, for example, Champlin cluster, you'll see boundaries that are sort of broken up. And the reasons for that had to do with either school closures or school repurposing that occurred. And we also value not disrupting people or changing their schools if we don't have to. And that one, in those cases, that weighed heavier than making the boundaries touch each other. So those are just some of the things that we try to consider. We also value maintaining current high school attendance boundaries for students. That's important. Consider growth from current and future residential development. So we serve 13 communities, and we work with them, with the cities regularly, just to try to get an understanding of what future growth looks like. What are the housing starts? What do they anticipate in the next 5 to 10 years? Andover is an example of that. And then we strive to establish boundaries to remain in effect for at least 5 years. We want to do everything possible to maintain that commitment at the elementary school, and then 10 years at our secondary schools. So with that, just to kind of, not to be dramatic here, but for the Andover cluster, our proposal at this time is to not change any of the boundaries. Taking into account all of the things that we just shared with you, that's what we feel is a responsible recommendation at this time for the next 5 years for our elementary schools. So with that, I'll turn it back over to Dr. Wolverton, who will wrap up.
Thank you, Mr. Cole. So with that, as you see here, we have some maps here for those that are in attendance. For those that are either viewing this through our live stream or through the video, or when you are referencing this in the future, the information will be on our district website where you'll be able to view the current and proposed attendance boundaries. As Mr. Cole just noted, we are not proposing any boundary changes in the Andover cluster at this time. And additionally, as he also noted, the district is continuing to monitor development and potential growth in this attendance area, but the existing space, we feel confident we will be able to accommodate any potential enrollment growth in this area. We also encourage community members to seek out additional information on our district website, and also to fill out any additional information that you would like to provide for us. So we have on the website a survey where you can fill out that survey and give us additional feedback. And if you have some specific questions you would like to ask the district in relation to this process and/or specifically in relation to your school, we encourage you to email boundaries@ahschools.us. Again, our opportunity at this time is for those that are in person to interact with any of our district members that are here with any questions you might have. And we strongly encourage community members to seek out providing additional feedback for us on our district website if we can answer any questions, as well as if you are interested in seeking out the information on the website with the document we have on there with frequently asked questions. So at this time, we'll end the meeting, and thank you for either viewing tonight or for those of you in attendance.